Dobrý deň, príjemné poobede. Ďakujem, Marek, za predstavenie. No, času nemáme mnoho a ako ste počuli, tá dnešná naša prezentácia bude taká delená. Ja tu na fyzicky a kolega Lukas cez telemost zo Spojených štátov. A pokúsime sa teda nejako dodržať ten rámec. O čom by sme vám dneska chceli hovoriť je rekonštrukcia našej centrály v Spojených štátoch amerických. Ja sa teraz budem tak chváliť cudzým perím a budem používať plural majesticus, my sme zrekonštruovali, aj keď to je teda napospol práca našich kolegov v Spojených štátoch. Nedovolím si vynechať jednu malú komerčnú vsúvku, že materiály a technologické riešenia, ktoré vám budeme ukazovať, sú dostupné aj v Slovenskej republike, takže smelo sa obracajte na našich obchodných zástupcov. Dobre, samotná story. Ako to celé začalo a o čom budeme dnes hovoriť? Budeme hovoriť o tom, ako dostať budovu, ktorá je zastaralá a povedzme za hranou svojej životnosti do súčasných parametrov tak, aby bola navyše ešte aj komfortná. Tak ako na začiatku Ilias Koček hovoril, že ak by on príliš hovoril o udržateľnosti, tak by nebol nebol uveriteľný. A podobne aj ja, ak by som vám hovoril o nejakom uskromňovaní a askéze pri udržateľnosti, asi by som nebol uveriteľný. Ale verím, že dostatočne uveriteľný budem, keď budem hovoriť o pohodlí, o komforte, lebo to sú veci, ktoré mám veľmi rád. A Andy mi v prvej prezentácii veľmi nahral, keď hovoril o hedonistickej udržateľnosti. To je niečo, na čo rád počúvam. A to je téma, ktorú aj prezentujeme. Vlastne na to, aby sme boli udržateľní, neznamená to návrat do jaskýň a živenie sa korienkami, ale vlastne tá udržateľnosť ide ruka v ruke s nejakým komfortom a hlavne s kvalitou toho vnútorného prostredia, v ktorom žijeme. To, čo vidíte na obrázku, tak to je tá istá budova v dvoch rôznych časových obdobiach. Jedna je fotka z roku 2009, keď Saint-Gobain túto budovu povedzme, že prevzal, pretože ju nevlastníme. Je dobrým zvykom firiem nevlastniť svoje budovy a nevlastniť svoje auta. A tá druhá fotka je pri otvorení po rekonštrukcii v roku 2015. Ono to tak pekne vyšlo, že sme ju otvorili zrovna, keď sme mali 350. výročie činnosti alebo života Saint-Gobain od založenia vo Francúzsku. Kde sa nachádzame? Nachádzame sa v Spojených štátoch, v Pensylvánii, takú polhodinku cesta autom od centra Filadelfie a nachádza sa tam jeden veľmi pekný areál. Ten areál je krajinársky upravený už niekoľko desaťročí, obsahuje jazero, obsahuje vzrastlú zeleň a to bol jeden z tých hlavných benefitov, prečo sa Saint-Gobain, keď hľadal svoju novú centrálu, rozhodol pre tento areál, napriek tomu, že tam už stála existujúca budova. Práve táto budova predstavovala takú najväčšiu výzvu a najväčšiu otázku, čo s tým ďalej. Lokalita super, teoreticky aj rozmery budovy by sedeli, tá výmera a plochy, ale samozrejme technické riešenie, aj morálne dispozičné, dávno zastaralé. Tá budova bola naprojektovaná a postavená v 60. rokoch. Robil ju Vincent Kling, čo bol vlastne miestny modernistický architekt z Filadelfie. A ona nebola zlá. V tých rokoch, keď vznikla, bola veľmi inovatívna. Boli tam použité obrovské transparentné plochy. Už vtedy do istej miery sa pozeralo na energetickú efektívnosť, pretože Vincent Kling umiestnil na fasáde slnolamy, použil na tú dobu inovatívny korten na fasáde, ktorý máme aj na tomto pontóne. A problém bol ten, že pri všetkej snahe, tak pri vtedajších technologických možnostiach a vedomostiach tá budova z dnešného hľadiska už nebola dostačujúca. Tie slnolamy vytvárali obrovské tepelné mosty do interiéru a podobne. Po dlhom uvažovaní sa kolegovia spolu s developerom, ktorý bol Icahn Development, rozhodli, že túto budovu nezbúrajú, že ju očistia vlastne na nosné jadro a využijú to, čo sa dá z nej použiť a prakticky ju zrekonštruujú takmer od základu. Dôležitá vec je, že tá rekonštrukcia sa potom podarila, tá budova má dneska Double LEED Platinum certifikáciu za core and shell a za interiéry. No a takými dôležitými hráčmi, okrem toho týmu, ktorý vidíte vypísaný, tak bola architektonická kancelária Bernardon a potom interiéroví architekti, ktorým je štúdio Jacobs. Celý ten areál má 26 hektárov a je v ňom vlastne priestor pre 800 zamestnancov. A obsahuje rôzne typy pracovných priestorov a už také v dnešnej dobe štandardné vybavenie, ako je fitness centrum, kvalitné krajinárske riešenie, ale veľmi príjemne je tam napríklad takmer 2 kilometre peších trás po tom areáli, ktoré vedia využívať zamestnanci na športovanie alebo na relax. Zložitou výzvou, ako som spomínal, bolo, ako dispozične vyriešiť tú budovu, keďže to riešenie, ako bola pôvodne spravená, nevyhovovalo. Už aj z toho náznaku na podoryse vidíte, že ide vlastne o dve samostatné krídla, ktoré v pôvodnom riešení boli prepojené len takým úzkým krčkom a funkčne to boli dve časti, ktoré moc nekomunikovali. My sme potrebovali jeden otvorený priestor a preto vznikla ten organický tvar v strede, ktorý ako keby prepájal obidve tieto časti a zároveň sa stal takým signature, taký podpis celej tej budovy, ktorá z tej klasickej modernistickej krabicovosti trochu oživí celé to architektonické riešenie. Tá voľba toho tvaru nebola náhodná, ona je odvolávkou vlastne na pavilón Saint-Gobain, ktorý bol v roku 1937 na Svetovej výstave v Paríži. A to bolo jedno z prvých takých väčších použití zakriveného skla. Aj na tejto fasáde je sklo ako keby dominantný materiál. Okrem toho, že je zakrivené, tak jeho hlavnou črtou je, že je elektrochromické. To znamená, to, čo vlastne riešil architekt Kling pri pôvodnej verzii slnolámami, tak v tejto verzii je zachovaný čistý tvar tej fasády a tá termoregulácia a regulácia denného svetla je riešená práve prirodzeným elektronickým stmievaním toho skla. To sklo je nastavené tak, celá tá inteligencia, že človek to neobsluhuje. Tí ľudia už ani nevnímajú tie zmeny. Ono prirodzene podľa toho, ako sa mení denný cyklus, ako sa mení osvetlenie alebo teplota, tak samé reaguje a podľa potreby sa stmieva alebo teda otvára, rozžiaruje. To má veľký vplyv samozrejme na energetickú efektívnosť tej budovy, kedy samozrejme, že sú použité kvalitné izolačné materiály a tepelné straty, nechcem povedať, že už nie sú témou, sú stále témou, ale väčším problémom pri administratíve, ako všetci viete, sú solárne zisky. Pri týchto veľkých presklených fasádach práve riešime, ako ich neprehrievať a ako som spomenul, práve to elektrochromické sklo pod našim názvom Stage Glass, tak je tu na tým riešením, ktoré bolo využité. Druhou takou témou bolo hospodárenie s vodou. Všetká zrážková voda z tej strechy je zachytávaná do obrovskej podzemnej nádrže, ktorá je potom používaná hlavne na údržbu areálu, na napájanie fontány, ktorá má kaskadovitý tvar a vytvára taký mikroklimatický efekt v tom areáli. Voda nie je napojená, tá zrážková voda nie je napojená na interiéry. Interiérové riešenie nakladania s vodou je riešené pomocou efektívnych batérií, efektívnych inštalácií, ale dohromady celý tento ako keby blok vytvára obrovitánske straty obrovitánske šetrenie oproti štandardným administratívnym budovám inde vo svete. Materiály, ako výrobca materiálov, tak samozrejme tie stavebné materiály sú našou obrovskou témou nie len z hľadiska toho, čo vyrábame, ale aj z hľadiska nejakej úcty voči tomu, čo už bolo vyrobené. Takže okrem toho, že jadro tejto budovy je rekonštruované, tak keď sa strhávali fasády a všetky ostatné materiály, či už to bol korténa, alebo oceľ, alebo teda akákoľvek iná materiálová zložka, len 10% z toho všetkého skončilo na skládke. 90% bolo recyklované priamo v areáli alebo na iných stavbách v okolí, čo je, myslím si, že markantný úspech, ktorý nie je celkom bežný, využiť 90% materiálov z búračky. Čo sa týka interiérových materiálov, tak samozrejme sme dbali na kvalitu tých materiálov, aby neemitovali voľné prchavé látky, aby vytvárali kvalitné prostredie akusticky, aj čo sa týka kvality vzduchu. A práve tá akustika bola druhou takou výzvou, keďže tá sklenená fasáda vytvára obrovskú časť a ako viete, sklo a akusticky tvrdý materiál nie je moc optimálny na kvalitu zrozumiteľnosti reči, tak práve preto tam boli uplatnené rôzne akustické riešenia, ktorými sme ako keby eliminovali ten negatívny dopad odrazov toho zvuku. No, či sa nám to podarilo? Myslím si, že áno, pretože keď sa robil potom prieskum, a o tej metodike vám bude neskôr o chvíľu hovoriť Lukáš podrobnejšie, tak sme zistili výrazné zlepšenie všetkých parametrov, to, ako užívateľia tejto budovy vnímajú to prostredie oproti predchádzajúcej budove, v ktorej sa nachádzali. Nepôjdem teraz do detailov, ale rád by som vás odkázal na stránku livinglaboratory.com. Tak ako som spomenul, pri tej budove sme išli zo zastaralej budovy na živé laboratórium. To znamená, keď sa budova osídlila, začali v nej pracovať zamestnanci, neustále bežali merania, neustále bežia prieskumy spokojnosti, individuálne požiadavky a to sa už vlastne od osídlenia tej budovy vyhodnocuje, zbiera. Tieto údaje sa zverejňujú na tejto stránke, ktorú vidíte. A toto je len taký malý výťah zo štúdie, ktorú sme po niekoľkých rokoch robili, ako sú užívateľia spokojní s tým prostredím, ktoré dostali. Ja by som si teraz dovolil odovzdať slovo Lukasovi Hamiltonovi do Spojených štátov, ktorý vám povie podrobnejšie niečo o tom, aké parametre exaktne sme pri tejto rekonštrukcii dosiahli. Lukas, nech sa páči.
Hello, my name is Lucas Hamilton. I am the manager of applied building science for Saint-Gobain, North America. And I want to speak to you today about the measurement of the impact of a building on a company. Our agenda will be to talk about the occupant outcomes, the impact, the moving of a company from one corporate campus to a new corporate campus had on the people and on the business. We will look at specific elements with regards to the indoor environmental qualities and tease out the things which had an influence, both good or bad, on the lighting, on the acoustics, and on the thermal comfort of the occupants. And finally, we'll share the lesson learned from this evaluation process. So right away, if we look at these graphs, on the left-hand y-axis, the number 0 represents a neutral feeling, had no impact. That goes from slightly satisfied all the way up to satisfied up at 2 and down to completely dissatisfied at -2 at the bottom of the scale. The dotted red line represents responses from the previous campus. The solid green line represents responses from the new buildings. These people, this is the exact same population of 800 people who moved again from an existing outdated series of buildings into a brand new state-of-the-art building. When they made the move, what they reported was that in terms of thermal comfort, there was a slight improvement. And we'll talk about that coming up. That is some of the most interesting lessons learned is in the realm of thermal comfort. When we look at lighting quality, it was a dramatic improvement. It went from being dissatisfied to satisfied. Same for acoustics, air quality, smell, ergonomics, which is, of course, movement and the ease of movement, and of course, space function, how well the design of the space was working for the people. So as we see in every single instance, the new space was working better for the people in the company than the old space. Another thing to mention about this transition was the older offices the company had been in were traditional office layouts that had perimeter offices that had glass walls and doors that closed, and central cores of open plan office that had 6-foot-high cubicles to contain sound and provide privacy for the workers in that space. In the new building, it is completely 100% open plan. There are no private offices in this building. There are small workspaces and large meeting spaces that are compartmentalized and have walls, glass walls, and privacy in that regard, but the building has no offices. It is completely open plan. And so there was quite a psychological impact and trepidation or worry for the population to go from traditional offices with doors to a completely open plan office. So please bear that in mind as we go through these results. These people are responding that the office is better and it's in a place they were afraid to move into because of the change in the office culture that would occur by, once again, going to this open plan. When we look at individual elements of the indoor environmental qualities, in this case now on the x-axis, the 0 line in the center represents a neutral response. To the left would be negative, to the right would be positive. On the left-hand y-axis, we see the percentage of the population in the response that is reporting this. And so when we look at this graph, what it's telling us is that the population in the prior building overwhelmingly felt the building was having a negative impact on their health. Coming to work was having a negative impact on their health. In the new building, we had a complete opposite response. Overwhelmingly, the population feels that coming to work has a positive influence on their physical health as a direct result of the indoor environmental qualities. And those would be, of course, light, sound, air quality, and visual comfort. Looking at individual elements of physical response, symptoms one might get from a building, and these are often referred to as the sick building syndrome symptoms, the things that people complain about when a building isn't functioning well. Once again, we see the dotted red line is the old buildings, the solid green line is the new buildings, and across every single category, there is an overwhelming decrease in the instance of these symptoms occurring. And you can get into individual symptoms here and look for cause and effect. And you see very often it's coming from things like light or air quality, or these things that we focus on when we design for indoor environmental qualities. Now you can break out what they are moving for you and what they are influencing. And once again, we see that the population is reporting a dramatic decrease in all of these symptoms by moving into the new building. Does that influence the company as well? Yes, the perception of productivity. This is self-reported perception of productivity from the employees themselves. Once again, we see in the previous location, they felt overwhelmingly the location was having a negative impact on their productivity, and it switched again to a very positive impact on their productivity. Again, this was a perception of how people felt they were doing. Some things we can measure, though, as well. We can measure productivity in some instances. This graph represents the productivity of a call center. A call center for us is a group of employees who used to just answer telephones and inbound inquiries and questions about products and systems that we offer. Today, that's more than just telephone calls. Of course, there's a lot of digital communications and chat and things like that. What we looked at was the inbound rate of calls coming to that group of people and how many of those calls got turned into sales leads. Now, those people's purpose is not to generate sales leads. Their purpose is to answer your questions. But when I answer your questions so well, and I give you so much information that is relevant to you that you say, could you have someone contact me with regards to sales information or how I can get my hands on this product? That's a bona fide lead. And so what we looked at was the number of inbound calls to this group of people from one location to the next. Same exact number of people and almost the exact same number of inbound phone calls. And again, those phone calls are generated by online literature and catalogs and information out there in the field. Of all the money spent generating all that information, we had the exact same number of inbound phone calls in both locations from 1 year to the next, from 1 week to the next. However, in the new location, they generated almost twice as many sales leads from the exact same number of inbound phone calls. Why did that occur? Well, when we asked them, they told us it's from having different conversations. They're much deeper into the conversation than they ever were before. They are actually hearing what the person is saying. They're much more engaged than they ever were before. They are having better speech clarity, better understandability, and it's turning into better sales results. So how much money would we have to spend to get that same result? Well, in the old building, theoretically, we would have to spend twice as much on marketing to get twice as many inbound phone calls that generate twice as many leads. Here it wasn't done. Here the building did it. It's one of those cases that build it and they will come. And so the building actually generated these results for the people. The graph here, or this image, shows the old location and the new location, and it shows the phases at which we did this measuring and this surveying. In the old location on the left, it was a series of 4 buildings. In the center image, we see the existing spot location before it was renovated. It was 2 buildings, and today it is one very large building. We measured before we moved, we measured the new location before it was renovated, as soon as it was renovated, and then again 1 year after everyone moved in. And that is very interesting, the results between the post-retrofit and 1 year later. You learn an awful lot in that process, and we'll share that, what we learned in the end. Here we can see a lot of the different things that were done, used to measure the space and the impact on the people. The surveying at the bottom was really, really important because you can't measure everything. Human resources simply won't let you do it. And so you have to get people to self-report on some of these things. And so we used the University of Oregon's HIPE group to do this for us. This is a group at the university that specializes in creating, administering, and then analyzing these sorts of surveys. And so they're the ones that performed all the surveys on this project and went through all the results and got that for us and helped us understand what was being learned from the people. In general, in this climate where we are here in Pennsylvania, most office buildings, because we have almost equal heating and cooling degree days, and that our outside temperature requires almost equal heating and cooling theoretically, that's not true for office buildings. Office buildings in this climate mostly have to prevent getting hot. We don't have to heat these buildings. They heat themselves because of 800 people, 800 computers, 1,600 monitors. All these things have such a high interior heat production that our goal here with this building is to not get hot. And so the building envelope was rethunk from a traditional, oh, let's stay warm in the winter, to we have to stay cool year round. In the first few years this building is open, we've really only turned on the heat about 2 months of the year, believe it or not, again, because of the interior heat production. So here we can see what we did to the building envelope. We came up with a bunch of innovative glazing systems. We used dynamic glazing or electrochromic glazing on much of this building. This is glass which automatically tints as the sun comes around the building. When other parts of the building that don't see the direct sun, we use traditional high performance double silver low E insulated glass units, such as you'll see in much of the world. There are the physical stats on the glass and what we did. We really changed the solar heat gain of the building by using this glass. That was a big part of it. We tried to harvest the daylight in the process, though. We want glass for a reason. Here we can see from the old building to the new building. In the old building, roughly 8% of the floor plate got natural daylight for the working day. The rest of the floor plate had to get artificial light to make up for it. In the new building, 64% of the floor plate gets natural daylight during the workday and does not require artificial lighting. So that's a huge win on both the human outcome, because we like real light, and also the energy expense that goes into the artificial lighting. What we saw, though, was that we actually had a little bit of a glare problem on some of our glass that was not electrochromic. The traditional glass where we didn't think we were going to get glare, we were actually picking up some glare. In the image on the right, you can see in the top right part of that, we had a large glare coming through the upper portions of those windows above the workstations. And we did have to install solar shades as a result of that. That glass has all actually since been replaced with more electrochromics, because the problem with interior solar shades is they get hot. The heat's now with you when you've captured it by capturing the light in that shade. And so we were having localized heating issues going on along those corridors coming from the solar shades we installed. And so we've switched out to the electrochromic glazing now, which keeps the heat outside the building as well as the light of the glare. And so the problem has since been resolved. So there's an awful lot of daylighting being intentionally done in this building to bounce the light through. Here's some pictures of the electrochromics in action, how they work. They work very quickly. They typically tune from completely open to completely 99% shaded, if that's what you're looking for, when the sun hits you right away within 2 or 3 minutes. And so it is not a slow lag. It actually happens so quickly and so seamlessly that as you work in the building, you forget it's going on. Visual comfort across the board has increased for the respondents going from the old building to the new building. The negative that you see, the dip in the middle, is what we see in a lot of our highly controlled buildings. People don't like not having control. Even when the light is good, they still wish they could go flick a switch or make some changes. It's sort of human nature. We see that on the temperature and on light issues quite a bit, that people are very frustrated not having control over those. Sound is really important, again, in this open plan office, because we had a real issue worried about it being too loud or people being confused or having distractions. So we do an awful lot of things in this space. It was an awful lot of design forethought and modeling to how do we achieve the right speech transmission index to have proper speech intelligibility. You want to hear what's being said on the telephone. You want to hear what's being said in the person next to you, but you don't want to hear what's being said 3 aisles away. And so how do you achieve that? Well, we do that by making the space really quiet, by using a lot of absorbent materials. And then, this might be controversial, here in North America, we use background noise. We will artificially put white noise into the space, which sounds like our air conditioning running. And that gives us the proper control of how far speech will travel. There's a picture there, the red circle is showing one of the little white noise speakers that's up in the ceiling. There are hundreds of these on each floor. And what they do is, you can see in the graphic above there showing you how much sound they give us. Turned off, this building is so quiet that it's only 41 decibels. The average office, by the way, United States is 65 decibels. We're 40, right? We're quiet. When we turn the sound on, we get up to 46. Now, why do we do that? We do that because of how far the human voice travels. The average speaking voice is around 65 decibels. If we want that voice to travel only about 10 feet before it becomes unintelligible and doesn't intrude on people, we need to be around 46 decibels. And so that's what we've done. We've set the background noise so that we've got hot zones of intelligibility right next to you. And then about 10 feet away, people don't understand what's being said, so they don't listen. So what you find is that in this space, people talk at normal volumes, but they don't disturb each other at all. Here we see the red represents the hot zone of where you can hear me clearly, and the green and the yellow represent you really don't hear me. I'm just part of the background noise, because the fact is my voice has diminished so much, it's now being swallowed by that background noise, that white noise that's just kind of humming in the background there. We've done it throughout the building. We've measured all the spaces. It's extremely effective. It's why when we moved into an open plan, everyone said it actually sounds better than our old offices ever did. So we can see that a dramatic improvement in acoustic comfort, moving from a traditional office doors that close to a completely open plan. So great success. And so we use acoustic dampening and active noise cancellation at the same time. You can't add white noise to an already loud space. That doesn't work. But if you can make the space so quiet that you can control the absolute background noise level, then you can literally control how far someone's voice is going to go. Now, with thermal comfort, we've had a few more challenges. People have had a few more complaints. And it's very interesting to see what's going on. Here we see in the graph, the black dots represent the temperature and humidity outside. The orange and the blue dots represent where people are, where the measurements are occurring inside the buildings. And that big swath you see going, this is the psychrometric chart, by the way. And that chart, that blocked area is where human comfort is defined as being. That's what we're supposed to be shooting for. And so what we see in this graph is that everywhere we measured, we're nailing it. We're right in the middle of where comfort's supposed to be. And yet people are telling us they're not comfortable. So what is going on? When we went out and we measured, we went into spaces. On the left, we see the old spaces. Only 6% was actually in the right temperature range, but we were letting people use fans, little heaters, all kinds of stuff to get themselves little solutions right where they were at to make themselves comfortable, because the building was so out of date it couldn't do it. But in the new space, when we first turned it on, when we first designed it, only 30% of the perimeter workstations were actually in the right comfort zone. When we commissioned the building and tuned that system, we got it up to 96%. Same thing happened in the core stations, the internal workstations. The building had to be tuned to get it up to where thermal comfort needed to be. Again, where those dots were in that zone of where the code and the design documents, the ASHRAE documents were telling us to be. However, people were saying, I'm not happy. And when you look at what is making them unhappy, once again, the lack of control is like, no one likes that. It's the temperature shifts. It's people being hit by cold air. It's when the air conditioning does kick on. If someone is near the flow of air as it comes out of one of those registers and they get hit in the back of the neck by cold air as they're working, they don't like it. They're very uncomfortable. It's like summer's the new winter in our office buildings because of this cold air issue. And that's what people are actually complaining about. And that's what we still work quite a bit on, is adjusting where the cold air goes and what it strikes and how people do experience it. It's not, no one's ever complaining about the warm air. Again, once again, it's being hit by the shifts in temperature of the cold air striking their exposed skin. So when we look at the buildings, we find this is kind of a bizarre spatial graph. On the left-hand side, we see people's responses to indoor environmental qualities in the old buildings, overwhelmingly negative. When we measured it, it was overwhelmingly negative. In the right-hand side, we see in the new buildings, overwhelmingly positive. So we have business results, which we saw from the call center. We have people reporting better productivity. We have all kinds of decreases in physical symptoms of people, of things that you know distract people from their jobs and from their lives. So what have we learned? Always design around the people. There's only one reason to build a building, right? It's about the people. And so make sure you're thinking about all of the physical impacts on people and how they respond to that environment. Remember, we're not from inside buildings, we're from outside. And so buildings have to work with us and we can't get in the way. So think about the people and how they will respond to those spaces and to those influences. Keep continuous feedback. Keep your people in mind in that design process as well as that commissioning process. Engage all kinds of partners and perspectives. Deploy high performance materials if you want to get improved occupant outcomes. You can't use everyday materials the way we've always used them without getting the same results. We've got to do things better and do things a little bit differently. Aim high in the design phase. And say, as an example, if you're going for a 50 STC wall, design it for 54 because you might only get 50 in the end. What we found when we measured the building was that everything we'd been designing for came in a little bit lower. And then when people moved in, it got even worse. People were making the light harvesting worse. They were making our sound control problems by standing up over their cubicles and having conversations. There's all kinds of things that people will do that you're not anticipating. So shoot a little bit high and realize that people are going to wash your values down a little bit on some of your performance things. So don't just shoot for the bar, always shoot high. And always multi-comfort is more than just the sum of its parts. All of these physical attributes influence how we feel, how we perform, and how we live. So keep it all in mind when you're doing these kinds of projects. There's the summary of the response for the people on the project. It was an overwhelming success for us. And again, people like coming into the building, which is really important now as we return from the pandemic and come back into the office. We're very happy that our people do want to return because they actually like it better than their homes. Thank goodness. Thank you. That was all I had for today. Appreciate it.